Hey.
Hello,
I'm Noah.
Hey.
This is Kazra and Joe, and this is the overall show. Say hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, every time. Love it. Every time. What's up? How y'all feeling this week?
Good. Tired, but good.
Tired. Why are you tired, Kazra?
Because I spent the last 2 weeks aggressively painting away and getting ready for the tournament that I went to last weekend.
Woo!
Yeah.
And what about you, Joe? Are you feeling good?
Yeah, I've been a little under the weather too since last week, but I had to take over I was voluntold to take over the D&D club at my wife's school because the older gentleman that was running it passed away, and the kids. Apparently, I'm the only able-bodied adult in the area that can pass a background check. So,
Well,
Do you play D&D?
I mean, I did, like growing up. So,
A game's a game, I guess.
Yeah.
So it kind of feels like what happened was if this was a game, the character died and the old guy re-rolled a new character who happens to be you.
yes, right.
Joe the Merciless.
Uh-huh. We had our first thing today, and just made I don't know what was going on. So the kids all have like 5th edition rulebooks, and the guy that was running it has like AD&D rulebook. So
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure what was going on here. Their old character sheets looked like they were written by a person in an insane asylum, just words scrawled everywhere. So we just made new characters. We're just gonna start fresh.
We're starting over.
Yep.
It's a good way to go.
Yeah.
How about you,
It's
Noah?
not savable. So I went on a New Kids on the Block cruise. That was super cool. I had such a good time. We go every year.
That's
This is an
amazing.
annual thing.
Yeah, it's every year. It's like 5,000, 3,000, whatever it is, 40 to 65-year-old, mostly women, just partying all night. The New Kids on the Block literally doing like a live show every single night in the center of the main deck, surrounded by a crowd. And then they do like a dedicated concert in their theater, and then they do like a game show, and they do meet and greets and whatever. And they're running around the place. It's great. I'm going to talk about how ADHD affects my health. Is that
Is Donnie Wahlberg there?
Oh yeah, dude, the whole crew's there for sure.
Nice.
Donnie is like an insane. Someday I'll talk about this. Like Donnie is like an insane energy that like it feels like he's like the very epitome of an extrovert. When he's standing in the middle of the stage of like surrounded by literally 3,000 people who are like crammed in tight on a boat, and he literally the night when you pull in like Monday morning, they start partying at 11 o'clock on Sunday night, and he commits to not stopping until they dock.
Wow.
And they docked at like 6 o'clock or something, right? So like, and he's like standing in the front, like almost like a sponge absorbing the energy. It's wild. But so I was supposed to get a COVID vaccine before I went, and my last minute it got rescheduled, and I had like job interviews and stuff, so I didn't reschedule. I forgot. I went on the cruise, had a great time, got back from the cruise, started feeling shitty, popped on a COVID test. So my first 5 days of isolation is up on Friday, but I'm also like single dadding at the same time. So like it's like a weird
You're like remote single dadding.
No, well, it's weird because like I live in a very conservative town, but like it's weird because like the rules now for a kid to go to school if someone has COVID is they basically just need to not be actively coughing and not have a fever, and they're just like it's fine. I'm like what the heck?
Yeah,
but my kids are both good. They haven't tested yet, no symptoms, all good. So the hope is we'll just make it to the weekend. We got one more day, and then they'll chill, and then I'll come off isolation tomorrow night, and then all will be well. My wife is currently still in Florida, she's going to Backstreet Boys concerts.
Whoa.
The evolution of the boy band.
Yeah, she's definitely a boy. she's a boy band connoisseur. She's a hero for sure. I mean, if she was a nerd like us, she would be like the hardcorest of 40K fan. But she's like that, but like for like pop culture. It's really cool.
That's awesome.
She knows.
I gotta
she knows how
say,
to party.
I enjoyed seeing the Noah face in the photos from the cruise. It looked like a really good time.
I should have sent that picture to Joe. Hey Joe, I'm gonna send. Actually, I guess I can put it up on here.
All right.
Joe looks nervous.
It's great. It's
my kids
my,
pull my
Lord,
phone, so I don't have my phone on me currently. But
it's my Lord and Bacchus cosplay.
whoa!
It's not as cool as you think it is.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it is cool. It's cool for an entirely different reason. I gotta find it. There it is. How do I download this? I'm just like technologically inept, so I'm gonna do it this way. Okay. Now present. Share my screen. Actually, no. I don't know actually how to do this. I'll figure it out another time, maybe. It's like mildly complicated, but basically, I'll describe it. It's me riding an inflatable bull, wearing full cowboy gear, mildly inebriated.
Okay.
It's truly something. Truly something.
It's truly something. I joke that it's my Lord and Bacchus cosplay. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit today about hobby progress, and then next episode is going to be either a competitive episode or a community episode, depending on. We'll probably do a competitive episode next one, and then the community episode after that. Because what we'll do next Thursday is do. If you guys want, we'll do some like detailed breakdown about play style, but also we'll use examples of some of the events you guys just went to. But maybe we can get some teaser right now because you both went to events, right?
Yes, Kaz, you want to start off?
Sure. So I had the pleasure of being at Kipper's Melee in Nanaimo, BC. I can say it because I'm from BC. It's really funny hearing other podcasts talk about Nanaimo. But yeah, it was a 100-person event. It was a golden ticket event for the best overall, which, spoiler alert, I got second, but I already had a golden ticket. And our good friend and friend of the show, Donald Plummer, won best overall. So he will be coming with us to Atlanta. Was very thrilled for Donald. He did an amazing job. He had an amazingly gorgeous army, as we have all seen. So he killed it. It was a great event. I ended up, as I mentioned, second best overall, best painted, which was awesome. And they actually had a painting competition separate, which was like, not the guys that play 40K, but the guys that are mini painters. And I had two of my entries, Gulliman and one of my Predators that I painted, get bronze, which like my painting teacher was one of the judges, and he actually exempted himself and had the other judges judge my entries. So the fact that I still got a bronze was like, oof. So I was riding high from that weekend. Really great event. Lots to talk about gaming wise as well, but we'll save that for the competitive event. But in terms of hobby progress, there's my hobby progress.
What's one competitive thing, like one gameplay thing you learned during the event? Like one way you became a better player?
I think for me, it was realizing when the opponent is going to have all of the advantages. If they rush you, they will see that and they will rush you. So you kind of have to have a plan on how to beat that rush. Kevin Hamilton, kudos to you, sir.
Was that your loss?
That was my loss. So I had two losses. One to a Black Templar fella, and that was the one I was describing, and one to the man, the myth, the legend, JT McDowell, in a nail-biting 5-point game against Eldari. We created a monster, gentlemen. He came out swinging after Charity Hammer with the Incarn and not just Drukhari. So it was not. It was last round of the tournament, it was me and JT, and it was a nail biter of the game. I owed a couple people some apologies after that because like it was the last round of a five round event. We're tired. JT and I are good friends, but we're playing competitively and we're going hard. And people kept like coming and standing around the table and trying to chat with us because we're both friendly dudes, right? So I definitely had to like I was having a bit of a moment. And JT and I at one point felt like we were playing against the room because like whoever's turn it was going, and the other person's like, back it up. All right, I need room. We're like, this is a real tight game. So it got a little intense. But yeah, I think the Black Templar rush was my lesson learned. And you would have thought I would have learned that from you, Joe, with your orcs, but sometimes orcs wear power armor.
Black
True
Templar
story.
make the number of attacks out of orcs look small, man.
It's true.
And they have
Ryan
AP.
Leduc, yeah, for sure. Ryan Leduc just said that he got hit with a full turn 1 alpha charge off a Black Templar off the line, and they wiped an entire squad of Lich Guard in one phase, which is pretty hefty feat for any unit to do.
Yeah.
But when you break that 20-man blob down, it's like literally like before they start exploding, it's like 97 attacks.
Yeah,
What is it,
it's
a
a lot of
Crusader squad or Sword Brother?
Yeah, so
yes.
well, no, you take yes. So you take it's the whatever the squad is where you can take the 10 initiates, right, on
Okay.
top of
The
the 10.
Crusaders.
Yeah, the Crusaders on top of the 10 power armor guys, and then everybody gets chain swords, right? And then you put there's some characters you put with them, and then you can throw some buffs on them, and then there's some strats you can pop if you need to, but they're like 4 attacks base or something before they get the there's like 3 attacks for the little guys and 4 attacks for the big guys, and like you're already talking 20 times 7.
Yeah,
right?
and honestly,
or
just
whatever.
with that big brick too, it takes a lot more firepower than you want to put in it to kill it. And then by the time
Sure.
you've killed it, there's 2 units of Sword Brother down your throat in your deployment zone, murdering all of your assets. So it was a lesson learned, and it was particularly rough given the mission. It was the ritual. So
Oh yeah.
if you're going second against a rush army and you lose the center, you're not scoring primary, which is exactly what happened. I don't think I scored a single point of primary.
Going first on the ritual, specifically if it's the ritual and scrambler fields, is wild.
Yeah, it's definitely a crazy kind of combination of factors. But on the screen are 2 of the characters that I finished in my kind of batch of painting up for the tournament. Noah,
That looks so good.
You inspired me to do the little the gun effect on Calgar, so thank you, sir. Gave me an excuse to do a little bit of a glow.
yeah.
I love a glow.
That's
for
cool.
you, buddy.
Yeah.
What is that?
So it's there are these 3D printing files that you can buy
Deadly
online.
Prince, right?
Deadly Prince Studio, yeah.
Deadly Prince is amazing. If you want to sponsor us, welcome to do it.
Yeah,
I
mean, it would be a poor decision because I know both me and Noah probably own everything you sell already. But like, hey, we'll take it.
I will anytime.
But yeah, so did that on Calgar. His head's magnetized, so I'll eventually do the bear head. But I was in a bit of a crunch time, so just finished him and finished Uriel Ventress there. Pretty proud of how that power sword came out.
That power sword is looking pretty hot, buddy.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
It's legit, and he is as a model looks amazing, but then also as a unit, he is also seriously legit. This is like a true. This is a 40K piece, right? It's amazing rules on a well painted model with some like above and beyond details. Like this is 40K at its finest.
This is why we do what we do. And I will say the coolest moment in all the tournament, and JT will disagree with this because you'll find out. So I came in from Strat Reserve, 9 inches away from Illic and 5 Rangers. And I couldn't see, like, I think I had line of sight to one guy. I shot him, nothing happened. I rolled the 9 on the charge. I get in. I only have 6 attacks. I need 7 wounds to go through. Well, he has sustained hits. So I got 1 sustained hit, 7 wounds through, killed the entire squad in one go. it was worth painting him just for that. So
Nice. Now this
He
is the
did it
guy
by
that they.
himself?
yeah, just all by himself.
What a hero.
What a
This
hero.
is the model they changed the head on, right?
Yes, yeah. 'Cause he looks
Okay.
like Simple Jack.
Simple Jack.
He looks a lot better now. I didn't have the honestly
That's
probably
amazing.
pleasure of seeing the original sculpt in person. I always saw that paint job, and I know for a face, a paint job can really change it. Like, we could do a whole episode on painting faces, I'm sure. But
They didn't change the model. That's still the same head. It was just
I'm
painted
not
back
sure.
early?
I'm not sure if it's the same model or if it's the same,
Oh, okay.
or if it was just a paint job thing. But I know they changed the box art like the second that came out and got memed so hard.
Yeah.
All right. So what about you, Joe?
Oh, Kaz has still got some more stuff out
Oh.
here.
All right. This was the rest of the batch. So I was painting one more whirlwind up, and I think there's the money shot.
They're so pretty.
So this was the army I took. 3 Redemptors, which isn't really my style, but I feel like that's kind of where Space Marines are these days. And you know what? I had fun with it. But I will say, kind of like panic painting so much has made me very quick with the airbrush portion of the vehicles. So, you know, it's good. I'm well practiced. But
Who was your MVP?
I mean, Calgar and the Aggressors, hands
It's
down.
always Calgar.
It's always going to be Calgar and the Aggressors, at least in Gladius. So,
Yeah, right. So yeah, I went to the Gemhammer GT in Dayton, Ohio, with my buddy Ryan, who's in the chat right now. The Heater. It was the Heater's first tournament ever. He just finished painting his Necron army, and this was his first tournament. So we went down there together. I did not do so hot, but I went 2-3. I got absolutely. I played my first game against Votan, which I won by 1 point. And
congrats.
Yeah,
That's
thanks.
a tough one.
And then I got demolished by. I can't remember who I played round 2, but the other ones were Eldar and Chaos. Let me tell you something about Chaos. That is an army that does some damage.
Chaos Marines is good, and almost any unit in their army can trade with almost any other unit. So
yes, I came to the realization that orcs just can do no damage whatsoever. So I think I'm going to be starting up a new hobby project here.
I think Chaos are good, and I think they're going to continue to be good for a while, at least until the next AG for sure. They might be a little high, but I think they're good enough because they're so beatable. But what's cool is they deal with Eldar pretty well, and they have a pretty even game basically into everything, which I think means that when piloted by a good pilot, they can really sing for sure. Do you have any pictures of that aforementioned hobby project in here?
I do. I got a few guys done. This will be. I am a member of the 20th Legion, so we will be going Alpha Legion. Yeah. So that was my test guy, and then I got some cultists, which are also test models. And then I have an Obliterator, which I'm really happy with how the skin.
He looks so good.
That looks so good, Joe. I love that scheme. Contrasting with the flesh too. Perfect.
Yeah, and I got one of the characters done who will be a Chaos Lord or Master of Execution.
Oh, he looks like I love that you're using all Primaris models.
Yeah.
He looks like a hero.
So
very Alpha Legion.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. I have long thought of a Alpha Legion Primaris build army. It looks amazing. That axe is sweet.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's gorgeous.
That is the Master of Execution's axe. So, yeah.
And the Master of Execution does chop like a hero.
Yeah.
So if you're on the podcast, what we're seeing is Alpha Legion colors in a non-metallic with kind of a softer blue hint. There's some cool kit badges if you get a chance to go look out on YouTube, but using Primaris models as the base for the Space Marines.
And I gotta say, I love that indigo in the shadows. That's very much a shout out to OG Alpha Legion colors.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're a connoisseur, sir.
Thank you, sir. There were 70 people, and I did not win best overall, but I did win best painted, which is the largest tournament I've ever won. Best
With your
painted
orcs,
at,
right?
with the orcs. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So that was awesome. I did get a nice plaque. Well, it was framed, like a certificate that was like framed in glass. And then when I got home and my kids were throwing a fit in the car, I took it and set it on the back of my truck, and it sat there overnight. And then when I went to leave the next day, I drove off and just happened to look in the rearview mirror and saw a glass exploding all over the road behind me. So that was awesome.
Oh no!
Oh no.
So no trophy for Joe.
Well, congrats
Sorry,
on
Joe.
winning. Sorry.
Thanks.
The real trophy is in your heart.
That's right. It is.
Yeah, man. So I don't actually have any hobby progress to talk about. I mean, I do. I I painted the first. Well, I think I talked about it before. I painted most of an Imperial Agents detachment while I was on a plane. I have to finish them up, but they're downstairs, which I'll get access to them when I'm off of my COVID isolation. So I'll probably have some pictures for next time. But today we're going to talk about hobby inspiration. So one thing that you know,
Is your house being
who's
raided by
being
the police right
assaulted?
now?
Sorry, I live in
No, not me.
Crackdown. Don't mind me.
So sorry, Kaz was apparently repulsing an assault. So when I was in London, we saw like these crazy flying buttresses and all this cool Gothic stuff, and made me really think about like the inspiration that people who designed 40K went through, right? That made me think about like what inspires me. And I was traveling with another person who's a very good painter. His name's Nick. He's on our team. And hey, welcome in, Nicholas James. But I was traveling with my friend Nick Villejas, and we were talking about like geeking out about the inspiration stuff. And we went to Warhammer World and whatever. It got me thinking, and I realized that like a big part that doesn't get talked about in hobby is how you take your inspirations and thought processes, color schemes, palette, etc., get that together and convert that into like an actual product. So I figure we could talk about that today, and hopefully that'll be helpful to some people. So hobby inspiration. So the first thing, is where do we get our hobby inspirations from? Can we come back to the slide? Let's talk a little bit about, because I want to use that as an example.
Okay.
No, go further on to other sides. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So let's open up the conversation and like what general like media things make you think about 40K and the art. For me, I think Blanche is probably the gold standard, but I think there's more than that for sure.
Yeah, definitely Blanche and anything in that Blanchett style, if you will, that just like it screams grim dark. So, I mean, a lot of different video games, hell, some cyberpunky even game, like it can even be genres that kind of stretch to one side or another. If I see something really cool that's like steampunky, it's like AdMech. There's certain types of genres of art and film and shows and games that will like feed into a certain archetype for me in my brain. So that's sure. For me, it's a big kind of like every faction has its inspo out in the wild.
Do you find your inspiration starts like lore inspiration or like paint like artistic technique inspiration or like lore based like inspiration?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would say it does vary, but tends to lean into lore based. And then the artistic kind of part of it falls into place. I'm a lot like you, Noah. I like to push myself with every project I do. So there's usually like one technique I'm really either curious about learning and trying or applying en masse in an army format. But the inspiration part tends to be more of the lore and like what I actually want to represent on the battlefield. How about you, Joe?
I actually really, this goes back to like when I first started playing geez, probably like 6th grade playing Warhammer Fantasy. Like you open up the books and they'd have all the, and I got some pictures of this later, but like with all the like
Cool.
armies laid out and all the terrain and everything. And that was what caught my eye, was like building the battlefields and everything. So, and I have some pictures I took as well, just like driving around at work. If I just see like a little landscape vignette or whatever, like that will inspire me to make a terrain piece or incorporate it into a base or something about. So rock formations, derelict buildings, like industrial sites, I like all that kind of stuff to get me excited about making that terrain.
Well, let's click through a couple of these and talk about it, like, and kind of relate to the inspiration as we talk about it. And then we'll do that for a little bit, and then we'll jump into talk about how we translate inspiration into like actually doing a thing. Okay, another classic. This is the Blanchout, like Emperor on the Throne. Everyone's seen it. It's dark, it's gritty, it's brown, it's got little pops of color. For you, does this hold the same place in your heart for both of you as it does for me? Because I feel like this is burned into like 11-year-old me.
100%. I mean, I'm a space brain through and through. This speaks to me on very many levels.
I think we should just pull the plug on him.
Heretics come.
So Sam Lemon says, inspiration for me comes from both in wanting to spend time doing a certain technique, i.e. weathering, but then also wanting to explore certain color scheme and set of colors. I think 100%. It sounds like your is more on the technique style, and I think that's 100% like very valid.
Yeah.
I have several armies that I painted because of technique alone, right? Like my Custodes were literally, I wanted to do glazed metallics and do rose gold, and that's literally the only reason they exist. They ended up existing. Yeah. So what about like? So you were talking about like little physical, like little like vignettes and stuff. This is an example. This is the cathedral at Westminster Abbey, right? And then some pictures of like the old school Gothic architecture. I mean, this could easily just be on the back of a Titan or something somewhere, right? Or you could scale it up like 1 million feet tall, and it could be a some type of sanctorum. Put a cannon on top of it, and it's automatically a control building.
Yeah, no, you definitely can see where that architecture inspires 40K.
And
rule of cool for the Darsh says rule of cool. And I think rule of cool is very much one of the most important guiding principles. Obviously, you still have to be in the confines of like being able to play it if that's that's your goal. But rule of cool, I think, trumps many things.
Absolutely, and Marshall does come up with. Marshall and I became friends because we were playing at LVO, and he put 3 super heavy tanks on the table, and we just had a blast. But I do get to see a lot of the crazy rule of cool nonsense that my good friend the Darsh puts together.
Speaking of rule of cool, calling back to this massive Black Templar versus Tyranids diorama from Warhammer World, right? Like, I think, what about inspiration for you guys coming from like other people's works? Because I think other artists definitely influenced me. I think we have a picture in here I sent in from like Morose Miniatures, which we'll get to and talk about it. That like, there's a lot of artists that like just seeing the cool shit they're doing really pushes me to want to do differently.
Yeah, Sam brings up a good point here. Just Googling for inspiration. Like, I just kind of did bare bones, like with these Alpha Legion guys on their bases. But the first thing I did was I was like, I'm going to do like temple bases. So I just Google Warhammer 40K temple bases, and a lot of stuff pops up to give me the good ideas that I want. So I have an idea what to do from this point out. So
for sure, Googling. What's the quote? Good artists copy, great artists plagiarize.
Very fitting. Well, yeah, and like you were saying, Noah, there's so many great artists. Like that's why I have a painting Instagram, was originally to follow the artists that I was like blown away by, and there's so many great artists out there. Like I have I very much follow El Miniaturista, and his glows, his really intense sort of like basically you can't find him painting a mini without some level of OSL. And so there's artists like that that inspire me with a certain technique. And that idea falls into this brain of mine, and then the lore thing happens, and it's like, oh, Black Legion are cool, and oh, like, wouldn't it be cool if we did a whole underglowed Black Legion army, which is an idea that's sitting in here, and I have all the boxes in there. But it's finding that inspiration coming from other artists, and looking at like what one of your favorite artists does with a certain mini. That sort of thing really pumps me up. And I know I do my best to imitate some of those legends that I tend to follow.
Apologize for the dog barking. I have a bulldog or a pit bull mixed puppy who was excited by some weird sounds on the porch.
It happens.
So the other thing that goes into it, no, we're good. The other thing that goes into it for me is story, right? Like this diorama definitely tells a story, like pretty. Yeah. But like I think on a more like scaled down level, an individual army, I like the individual models in an army to tell a story. And that's one of the reasons I like the battle effects, because for instance, for my knights, I want it to feel like they are dynamically engaged. They are doing something, right? They're not a static model. They're supposed to be, the Dominus Knight is actively charging with like one leg up, right? And like the everybody's firing away with their guns or stepping onto a piece of rubble or something, and that really tied into some of the inspiration, like some of like the old school illuminated manuscripts and that kind of stuff, and wanting this idea to feel like knights at joust, right? Like actively knights in the tilting into the charge was kind of the story I wanted to be telling. And I think story also drives a lot of that inspiration too. Like, I'm a big nerd, so I want to look at my stuff and feel like not only did I push myself as an artist, not only does it look cool, not only does it maybe fit the lore, but like I also want it to feel like there's an individual story that when someone else looks at it, that story is going to start forming in their head, even if it's slightly different. This is more from some of the dioramas. This is like that action pose stuff I talked about. Like you've got like a Gargant actively choking out a dragon, and an angel standing on the butt of a dead Gargant. While
now this is how I like to party.
Yeah, for sure. There's one that's not in here where like one of the Gargants is like has picked up like a pair of goats in one hand and a cart in the other, and is using the cart as a club. But I think that like dynamic stuff also inspires me a lot. So it's kind of hard to achieve, but I think other people's stuff that is in more dynamic poses definitely like evokes thoughts for me that like turn into things. Okay, another kind of inspiration thing to talk about is how much does childhood and your early formative stuff like project into your inspiration? Because for me, it's a lot. and the slide I just put up is like a cover from the old school 1979 or whatever it is Hobbit movie with like the really saturated 80s art, and Gandalf standing over Bilbo with a dragon in the background. And for me, this kind of stuff.
Is that the one that's like half cartoon? Excuse me, half cartoon, and then there's like the weird, like live action superimposed over it.
I don't know. I think so. It's like super old.
Yeah, that one really creeped me out as a kid. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, and like the goblins and the orcs still stand in my mind as like when I think of goblins and orcs in games, the first thing that comes to me is those like really wide faced, almost like pumpkin headed, like warded up. And I think there's a reason. I think this really inspires me that I like to favor really bold colors, which is hard for me because it actively pushes me away from grimdark styles.
I think there's a marriage of the two. For like, I obviously like really saturated, bright colors if you look at any of my work, but I still do tie it into the grimdark. I actually like the contrast. I feel like much like you, the same sort of. I was definitely like watching Spider-Man and other '90s cartoons that were like very bright colors, X-Men, things like that. And when I look at how I paint, I feel like I've kind of married the two. My bases are grimdark. The world around my army is grimdark. Ergo, the weathering kind of tones things down. But if you look at the colors I actually use, they are very borderline cartoony in their saturation. So I feel like you can
Yeah,
kind of bring the two together in this like cool artistic style.
but doesn't that also that tells a story, right? Because
Mhm.
like that's who the Ultramarines are, right? They're one of the lights in the darkness. They're supposed to be an example, an exemplar, and you have in your style created like I mean, because you're like an Ultramarine, right? In your
Absolutely.
style, you have created a sense of like an actual narrative of like grimdark world encroaching on these paragons. What
Yeah,
about you,
and you
Joe?
got to get your hands dirty too.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, what is Dino Riders? I've never heard of
Oh,
this.
okay. So I included this because uh, one of the armies I was playing for a while, and Kazra met me in this form, was a entirely dinosaur kit dash Tau army, which I still have.
Wow.
I don't play it very much right now. One of the reasons is it is so heavily kit bashed that like it can be a little complicated when you're playing competitively, not for my opponent, but for me, because I hold myself accountable to size dimensions. And some of my stuff, you know, with big wings and whatever, outlandish, you know, rule of cool, can be kind of complicated to actually play hyper competitively. I did pretty well when I took it to Tacoma not last year, but the year before. But I haven't been playing. But it was inspired by this Dino Riders. It's like a 1980s cartoon, early 90s maybe, that was really actually based off a set of toys that I'm pretty sure were just like repurposed like dinosaurs and GI Joe parts. Like, hey, we have too much of these. Let's put these together because literally it's a cartoon about dinosaurs and high tech like hero people equipping these dinosaurs with guns and then fighting against evil dinosaurs and monsters who
Whoa.
also are equipped with lasers and guns. And and it's very like cartoony colors, 1980s artwork, and very just completely wild. But like every time I put it on the army on the table, me and the other person, if they're like even remotely close to the same age group, it's immediate geek out fest. Like me and Kazra literally got lost in geeking out about it.
I mean, I'm amazed we finished our game. But
Yeah, for sure. This and so Dino Riders is like that's an example of how like a very strict concept translated directly into thing. Like literally, I just took Dino Riders and made everything as close as I possibly could, and it's pretty it's pretty one for one. And then the Last Unicorn is another example of like that the 1980s cartoon style. Like also, I think partially because Games Workshop was using a lot of this kind of art style at the time for like the original Talisman games and the original Warhammer games, really still speaks to me. A Flight of Dragons, which is like one of my inspirations for my Knights Army, specifically the color palettes and some of the chivalry stuff. Again, 1980s, early 90s cartoon. Last Unicorn is gorgeous, Sharon. Yeah, Sharon Dallas says Last Unicorn is gorgeous. It is really, it haunted me as a kid. Like it was literally nightmare fuel for me as a kid, but now call back to it for sure. And then this is an example we were talking about being inspired by other artists. There's this guy who goes by Morose Miniatures on Instagram. You should go follow him if you don't. He is totally amazing. His art is all stuff that is like really wild kit bashes that really evoke feelings. Like every one of them is something like a lonely robot who's rusting in a field, or like a pair of space. He's the guy who does the two Ultramarines holding each other's hands, frolicking through the field.
and he's
Have you
also
seen
the
that?
guy that
I
created the
only have
Paint
seen
Pot
that.
Challenge.
Yeah, the Paint Pot Challenge is
Yeah.
amazing too.
Yeah.
We have a question from
So
Sam.
yeah,
For you,
what's up,
Joe.
Sam? Oh, okay. So he says, when you talk about converting, that's a question I have. How do you balance doing the conversion and seeing an idea whilst keeping a similar? Sorry. Show the second one. Similar silhouette, allowing on a competitive level, easy identifying what the model is. Yeah. So this is something I had to calibrate over for a while. So I'll give you my quick lessons learned. I take measurements of dimension and try to be within, you know, a quarter of an inch wide and long. That's the most important dimensions, right? Because that is, I think, the thing that most impacts the actual gameplay. And then the other thing is when you're playing with them, I try to be very permissive. Sorry about that. I try to be very permissive with being lenient on my opponent for like, if there's any question, if they're in base, whatever. So definitely lean on that. One thing that I didn't used to pay a lot of attention to was height dimension because I didn't really feel like it mattered that much with obscuring. It definitely matters way more, and maybe a little less now, but it definitely matters. So the other thing I've been trying to do is like also look at height dimensions and scale down. Ultimately, I'm okay with forfeiting some amount of tactical advantage for achieving a specific hobby aesthetic if that's what I'm going for. But I just always want that if I'm doing that, it's an intentional decision. An example is I've got this really cool Crisis Commander in Enforcer suit that's built off like a combination of a dinosaur and a hive tyrant with big wings, right? I tell my opponent, if you would like to draw line of sight to my wings, which are obviously larger than anything, then you can. But if you're drawing line of sight to me, I'm going to draw a line of sight from them. I don't draw a line of sight from the wings. So if I always try to make sure there's a clear set of symmetry. Anytime my opponent wants to punish me for an artistic choice, I just accept it. And then just try to make sure that for like functional play, nothing is an advantage for myself. So if there would be an advantage, I just don't take it. And that usually makes things all right. So ultimately what I'm saying is you should lean into whatever your most important thing is. And if competitive play is the more important driving element, then you should basically make yourself a frame. So I've done this before. We make a small scaffolding, like a couple pieces of cardboard that are the same, about the right width, and then a piece that's about the right height. And I build my model inside that scaffolding and then trim and bring it down so that it's kind of generally within the cube, right? You just 3 pieces of cardboard will make this little scaffold for you. You can get the dimensions off models. And then as long as you're in that kind of hit box, I think you're probably fine, right? It might mean making some artistic compromises. If you don't care and you're willing to just take suffering penalty, good example is like a Cherokee Open. I played my knights on these really amazing artistic bases, but because obscuring wasn't ruled the same way as it is now, and I was Titanic. Even if I was on normal bases, I would have been able to hide my knights. But because that I wasn't able to hide any of my knights on the table at all at Cherokee. I still did very well at Cherokee.
I was gonna say you still did pretty well, friend.
Yeah, I think I was in the top 20 or something. I did pretty well still, but I definitely had my game against Tau was definitely on the line, and my one loss against Knights was definitely impacted by this artistic decision I made. So hopefully that's helpful. This is more, I think this is more like the stuff I used to inspire my Knights. It's like illuminated manuscripts, Knights into the Charge. Is this from you, Joe?
Yeah, these are mine. Yeah.
All right. Joe has got something like a physical landscape. Is this one of those like vignettes you're talking about?
Yeah. So I probably should have zoomed in a little better, but this is just a power line on the side of the road with a bunch of rocks piled at the base of it. Man, I love this little picture.
It's got a lot of elements going.
Yeah, just like having the rocks there, like just gives you like a sense of how, I mean, just it helps my brain like take a mental picture of it and then like use it for later. Like this is how something realistic is going to look. So I need to make my base look like this as well. So
yeah, you could totally see a model standing on a couple of those rocks, leaning on that light pole.
One or two of them look pretty tactical to me.
That's right.
Yeah, for sure.
And then
this is great.
Yeah, I love this. This is an old cemetery in the area where I live, and yeah, some of the older ones, like in the middle of the cemetery, the older headstones have all these little trees growing out right next to them. I just love how the headstones are kind of intertwined with the foliage in here. So again, just ideas for later as far as terrain or bases.
It's interesting how the things that kind of inspire you and also inspire me, like that we're talking about, are things that naturally have artistic composition, right? This has multiple points of interest. If you look, you got the yellow tree kind of the gray tree on the side, and that pop of pink in the middle creates the 3-point triangle.
Mhm.
You've got multiple interspersed elements. If this was a basing, you'd have flocking tufts and some 3D elements, right? It's weird how, like, it's almost like part of artistic composition is to emulate like reality, right?
Ooh, composition. That's the right word. Yes, absolutely. Yep. And then the other thing I really like is just how some of these old headstones are just have settled and they're just slightly off kilter, just kind of leaning a little bit to the
Yeah.
side. Love it.
This is like the guy from Artis Opus always saying, like, never put your head on looking straight forward. Right? Because like the little, like, you know, cocking the arm slightly, turning the head to face down the barrel, you know, those kind of things are the things that give a model life, whereas the static poses kind of take away from it.
Yeah. This is just a little gate I came across, and I love these little rocky outcroppings on each side of them. It just reminds me of like the fences that they used to have, like as the scatter terrain in old school Warhammer Fantasy. So, and the little road. And this tree, I drive by it all the time.
Oh my gosh.
That's beautiful.
This tree is awesome, and it's got this like old, like beat up rock like at the base of it. Yeah, it's just amazing. And there's a little older one on the side.
The silhouette of that tree, I can see as like the backdrop of a display. That's
Yes.
really
Yeah,
cool.
for sure.
Really, really cool.
Not pictured are like the 200 cows on the other side of this berm. So I had to angle the picture just right and make sure there wasn't any oncoming traffic.
I think the latter part was more important.
Yeah.
Oh, this is good.
Yeah, and then this cell phone tower. This is like one of my little hiding spots at work when I go eat lunch or catch up on my paperwork. I just love the like industrial architecture of like the wire, you know, the iron frame of it, and it's got the blinking lights on it and everything. And
yeah,
and it's that Mechanicus terrain, just so awesome.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's the guy on stilts?
Right.
The sniper.
This is just him. One leg. Yeah, this is one leg.
Yeah. I had to pull out some of the old codexes here. This is like what I'm talking about. Man.
Beautiful.
I just remember
this is the saturated old school 80s art.
So good. I love the old terrain and like the little tree setups and everything here. That is probably the thing that caught my attention the most as a kid, looking through these books, was just how awesome these scenes were. They would line the armies up against each other. Obviously, we have dwarves versus chaos dwarves here.
It's interesting because, like, if you took an army painted like that didn't have context, let's say these armies didn't exist before, and only the current style of arts exists that people are doing, like, and you put an army that was painted like this, it would come across, I think, initially to a lot of people as just being tabletop, being basic.
Absolutely.
Right? But in the context of kind of where it started, it's got, we think of it in a very like positive, artistic way. Like, I think we probably elevate this beyond its like actual, like, it's very clean execution, whatever, but we probably elevate this beyond its actual, like, where it compares to, let's say, other art, like current artists or whatever. But I think it is still so foundational, right?
Yeah.
Well, and if you think about miniature painting as an art form, like in the modern way, it's actually a pretty young art form. So when you look at this is kind of a step in the evolution. And I think you're right. I think there's definitely a nostalgia factor for all of us that, like, oof, we put this on a pedestal just because it like hits you right there. But I think it's also a pretty good sort of step of like, okay, well, you can see different colors and textures. But if you look at modern painting, the volumes are painted a bit more. The shading and highlighting kind of tell you the story of the shape of whatever that is. I paint a lot of green, so it's all, you know, tubes and circles and this and that. But when you look at the old painting, the color theory was amazing. The execution was clean, but there's a lot of lighting things that are now taken into effect in modern miniature art that is kind of that next level. And I think we've watched it sort of skyrocket in terms of how complex people can get with what they display. But there's something so pure about this style.
Yeah.
Right. The technology is also advanced too, right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, I don't think airbrushing was terribly popular back then.
For cars.
Sure, yeah, cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, not minis.
Yeah,
And
but
also-
you didn't have a setup
also-
like this, just like in your
Yeah.
room.
The available paints, right? Like the paint ranges, like Citadel made their own ranges to accomplish their thing, right? So like, you know, the ranges and the formulation, a lot of the paint was more, you know, much thicker, based more on like, you know, like traditional painting. So there is a lot that has been made possible by like the accessibility of the tools too.
Yeah. Oh, 'cause we're talking about artwork. Let me tell you a story about the Skaven Assassin. Oh, that is like the coolest picture in all of Warhammer as far as I'm concerned.
It's super cool, man.
I don't know who MG is, but he does all the super cool work from that era that I
This looks like this is like Ninja Turtle style for me.
Yes.
Oh,
This is
yeah,
great.
that's like
Yes.
Evil Shredder or Splinter basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this
Same
one's good,
guy
too.
with the Globeteers. Man, this stuff is just
Mark Gibbons. I looked it up.
oh. And we're talking about inspiration. Let me tell you this quote here. This is my favorite Warhammer quote. And
Okay.
this is that's why orcs are awesome, okay? The orcs are the pinnacle of creation. For them, the great struggle is won. They have evolved a society which knows no stress or angst. Who are we to judge them? We Eldar who have failed, or the humans on their road to ruin in their turn? And why? Because we saw answers to questions that an orc wouldn't even bother to ask. We see a culture that is strong and despise it because it is as crude. By Ulthan the Perverse. I don't know that old philosopher. He's probably turned into a spirit zone by now. But that just makes me want to go out and crump people. Okay, that's awesome. Love it.
Yeah, it's great. I love that.
And
That
the
old school
OG
Avatar
Avatar
art?
Arcane. Oh, I think this is also by MG. I don't know who this guy is.
Mark Gibbons. I looked it up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mark Gibbons killing it. And the thing that always inspires me is the love of my Primarch. Okay. Hey,
I
hey,
can understand that.
you remember when they randomly killed a Primarch off in a random Horus Heresy book that hadn't been killed before? I remember that. Speaking of dirtbag Primarchs,
It's Gilliman, spoiler alert.
Don't be so bitter. So,
I love this color composition.
so in terms of inspiration, like I went a little bit more tactical, if you will. So when I was thinking of ideas of how I was going to paint my Guilliman and differentiate it, there weren't a lot of the like big name artists that you see painting miniatures that had done a Guilliman that really spoke to me. So I knew I wanted to make it a lesson in OSL. I 100% knew that, but I thought, okay, the flaming sword is cool. We're gonna get to that too. But the thing that like just shot that dopamine into my brain was the artwork of the 9th edition rulebook, and that teal, that turquoise light, just kind of backlighting Guilliman, making him look like this angel. That spoke to me, and I wanted to paint my Guilliman to kind of encapture that feeling that this evokes. And then I wanted to splice that in with another thing. So if you could go back to the previous image there, Joe.
oops.
Oh, gotcha.
So then I took that turquoise and I had that in mind. And then for the actual sword and the glow coming from the sword, this artwork, I don't know who this is.
Amazing.
But this amazing artwork inspired me. And if you look at the Guilliman that I created and the display trait that I created, I've painted that turquoise light, backlighting him in a way that's balanced with the glow light coming from the sword. And actually, if you look closely at the sword of my Guilliman, a lot of the flame patterns are 1-to-1 matching from this
Wow.
photo.
What a madman.
Yeah, so those two
Hero.
pieces of inspiration, like it was this photo like sparked it.
Is Kato Sicarius shooting a plasma pistol at Fate Weaver in that picture?
I think so. Yes.
Definitely is what's happening.
That is 100% what's happening.
He's like, pew, get out of here. All right. So on that note, I want to roll back to that first slide that I had you skip.
Number 11.
Yes. All right. So if we talk about translating this into like do's, right? So we've talked a lot about like, hey, I just got inspired by these things and I want to grab the elements. Wherever your inspiration starts, whether it's the lore or it's a color scheme or it's a specific effect or feeling, whatever that starting point is, for me, a technique that I use to do this is I grab onto whatever that is and I start trying to search and find pictures and elements that are similar, right? Whether it's something in my house or something I see, I'll take a picture of it, or I Google, just like terms that I think might be related. And I start kind of spiraling off the feel or the specific like effect or vocation, whether it's like when I was trying to learn power weapons. So I started Googling like green glow power weapons and start to look like all these different ways to do that. Or when I was doing my, Tau army or my Knight army, it's like, okay, I want Dino Riders, or I want like old school Knights of the Joust, right? And so for me, it was like a Knight's Tale plus illuminated manuscripts and a bunch of that stuff, a little bit of like Princess Bride. Those things made it in. And so I'm currently starting a project that is a kit bash between Votann and Tyranids, because the goal is to do kind of a sci-fi horror. In the Votann lore, one of the Votann's planets, worlds, whatever, got overtaken by Tyranids. And so my lore, like what spun that made me think of like, well, what if they were fighting against them so long and they tried to do additional like modification to their clone skins to like fight off the Tyranids better, but they became corrupted. So now they're all like messed up and horrific, but they're still good guys. So they're like a nightmare fighting against the nightmares, very much like Doom Guy, that kind of stuff, kind of feel. And so I started Googling things like sci-fi horror, H.G. Geiger, that kind of stuff, and started just grabbing elements. And this I used Figma to put it in like this, but you can, whatever you want. I just bring all these kind of things together, and there's elements here on this element board of different things. So like, I know that what I want is more a lack of color with specific emphasis on color. That made me think of like Sin City. So I went and grabbed a picture of the Sin City comic books where they'll have like splotches of red for blood or wording, but most of it is done in black and white and grayscale. And I know I wanted this sense of like sci-fi, like alone in space, no one can hear you scream kind of horror. So looking at like sci-fi horror, I found a couple of these pictures that really spoke out to me. I knew I wanted to use some amount of grayscale, so I just searched like grayscale art, and I found this one like kind of swatch of grayscale that really felt like it was the right levels of light and dark for me. And then I was looking at like colors, and one thing that came up in a lot of these horror searches I found was, like you were saying, the teal and red kind of contrasts. Actually, that comes up in a lot of sci-fi horror. That specific lighting duality comes up a lot. And so I committed that I want to include some amount of elements of the contrast between the teal and the red interposed inside of this grayscale. And then I want, this like mutated body horror. So I've got a couple of these like warped creatures kind of things. Obviously, in addition to this, I have like the Votann box art and I have Tyranids and that kind of stuff. And when I'm painting, I'll have this on like my iPad, or, I'll look at it on my phone every now and then. And I'll use this like, okay, so what colors do I need? So when I'm starting my palette, I'll grab the colors to like make sure I'm basically getting almost every color combination in my element board. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to use to achieve specific things? So I know I'm going to need a bunch of green stuff and do sculpting because I'm going to want like twisted patches of flesh. I know I'm going to need Tyranid pieces. I know I'm obviously going to need Votann pieces because it's going to be a Votann army. And then I look at like if there's any elements or things that I like can't achieve with the basic components I have. So like, do I need something else? Right. And then this tends to be my like framework. And so this is almost like my shopping list. What do I need to start? once and I try to I start with a lot of pictures and I just start weeding them down until I get to 10 to 15 that just match, really concentrate the feeling I'm going for. And those 10 to 15 pictures are my Bible from there.
When you're starting a new project like this, do you ever just sit down and stare at a color wheel for a while?
I do, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I didn't do it until after I noticed how much this red and teal color just keeps showing up. Like this magenta teal combo is literally, once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's literally everywhere.
Yeah.
in space horror. Yeah, so hopefully that was helpful. Upcoming events. So that's an interesting conversation. What do you guys got on the horizon? I know what me and Kazra have on the horizon.
Let's hear it.
We have world champs.
We do.
Yeah,
and I am buried in commission painting, so I will not be painting anything new. I'll probably show up with a Gladius list, to be honest.
Wow.
I mean, I think Gladius is actually still good.
I agree.
mean, the list dude, honestly though, the list you brought to
Charity
this last event, Kippers. Thanks. Apparently we're fancy pants.
We are.
Thanks to Darsh, we're apparently fancy pants. So it's got triple Redemptor, it's got double Whirlwind. You're basically that's basically an Ironstorm list.
Pretty much. I need to paint Tech Marine. I don't know if I have time. We'll see.
I mean, you have one Tech Marine painted, right?
I guess if I repurpose the Thunderfire Cannon Gunner. I don't have Primordial painted.
Oh. Painting Tech Marine, I think. I mean, I don't know what you want to play, or how Gladius is fine, but you're one model away from what is probably nearly a net list of the Firestorm. Yeah, because you've got triple Redemptor, double Whirlwind. That's already a lot. And then, is there any other vehicles in that list?
No, but I have other vehicles that could and probably would summon, because I doubt the Aggressor brick stays if I go Iron Hands.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really need the Aggressor brick in the same way, but if you go Gladius or whatever, also there's the Vanguard list. You just put the Aggressor brick with Gilman, not Gilman, what's his name? With Marnius and a lieutenant who's got the upgrade literally 9 inches away from them on turn 1, and just say, I hope I go first.
Yeah, that's, you know what? There is something to be said for simplicity of the plan.
I do think the Gladius list, you have so much experience with the Gladius list, and I don't think the Gladius will ever be a bad detachment. I think it's just going to, the Firestorm detachment is, I think, overtuned. And I think the internal balance on the Codex is probably bad. There's just specific units you take. Yeah. And it varies a little per detachment, but there's here's a short list of units. These units end up in every detachment, and then sprinkle from there. And I think Gladius, Vanguard, the Fire one, and the Ironstorm one are basically going to see a bunch of play. And I think the Stormlance one and the first Company one are going to see any play.
Yeah, I feel like with Stormlance, they forgot that they legends. I feel like with the Stormlance one, I feel like they forgot they legended a bunch of bikes. So.
Oops.
I think White Wolves will be a thing.
Yes.
My brother is testing a list. My brother's testing a list with 18 Thunderwolves and 6 Thunderwolf characters. Yeah. And then it still has other stuff in the list.
No, seriously. Every time I read that detachment, I hear my Space Wolf friends wooing in the distance. It is the Space Wolf detachment. Let's be real. But yeah, so
I'm conflicted. I think I'm taking Knights. I feel a little bit trapped because the Knights internal. So I started Knights at 9th because I needed a hobby project that I could go X and 1 with, and I have since accidentally become ITC Best Knights and ITC Hobby Best Knights, and I just like the idea of playing with a low resource army and having to play out of complicated situations at high levels with limited tools. That is fun for me. I
You've
have
gotten
since
really good
began
at
to
that
be
too.
yeah, but now I'm getting berated by my friends saying like, why aren't you playing an army with real capabilities?
Ouch.
like you're actively. I had a friend tell me that I was actively handicapping my elo because I refuse to play a real army. So,
Well, I
but
disagree
I think
with
I have
that.
to be on Knights until I know. But I think I'm on Knights till LVO.
Yeah,
It'll give me time to get some other hobby projects done. But I think I'm on Knights till LVO. But I keep considering. I just spun up TTS and got it like configured. So I keep considering practicing with some other armies and maybe taking something else. But I think I'm just going to be on Knights for Atlanta. I do have a tech piece that I'm really excited about, which is the Imperial Agents with the Navy Breachers. So
yeah.
it's like weirdly too good of a unit in my opinion for what it is. It's a 100-point infantry unit and a 100-point character unit that ends up with 20 wounds, and it has 5 4-up invuls in it. It has a 5-up feel no pain for the whole unit. It rerolls wounds against anything on an objective. It's got an OC of 24. It has effectively 37 wounds after 4-up invuls and 5-up field no pains. And it has like 30 attacks in shooting and like pretty close to 30 attacks in melee. If you spend 1 CP, you can have up to 9 attacks of precision as 5 natively because it has a Death Cult Assassin in there.
Nice.
It has a Melt-A-Gun. It gets 1 extra dice on its grenade rolls because of its Grenadier. It has a bunch of AP attacks. It has a power weapon. It has shotguns. It has assault weapons. It has
And it's
pistols.
infantry, which is
And
something
infantry.
that's unique for your army.
And then the Rogue Trader unit lets you redeploy D3 battle line units. Armigers are battle line.
Yes, they are.
And then you can redeploy them into reserve. And then it has infiltrate and gives infiltrate to whatever unit it joins. So this unit also can just start 9 inches off your line, which when you're playing against, let's say, like orcs, is really good because it means that orcs are probably not making it to where they want to that turn because you're just deploying 9 inches in front of them.
Here's a wall of meat. You got to eat this before you can just rush over to my half of the board.
And what's funny is like it's actually kind of hard to like if they under allocate to it, it'll just live.
Well, that sounds like some lovely. Well, not that, but your plan sounds lovely.
Sorry about that. What about you, Joe? Any other event plans?
I was gonna go to Rumble in the Rivers, but my time off got denied because I forgot it was November 14th, which is opening day of rifle season, which is apparently a national holiday up here. So, shame on me. So yeah, I got to figure out what I'm going to because there's not too much going on in the Midwest in the next couple months. So, I'll see.
Yeah, I'm sad I'm not going to SoCal, and I'm sad that I'm not going to Cali Cup. But for any of y'all who go, I'd love to hear about how it was. And then anything. So I'm going to give a little bit of teaser. Y'all have heard about Aegis Games before. We got something big. We're going to have a 4-day gaming event that's going to happen in March 7th through the 11th, I think. It's I'll have confirmed dates and everything probably on our next show. We're going to have a 3-day Warhammer 40K Major, as well as AOS events, War Machine events, Malifaux, and maybe some Shatterpoint or something similar. We have Magic events going on, but there's going to be a 150-person Warhammer 40K Major, and we'll have more information and probably take it up here in the next couple weeks. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, that's all I got. Anything else from you guys?
Nothing for me.
Nothing for me. I can.
Well, I'm really sorry about my exciting background noises, by the way. Single dadding with COVID is a thing.
You're rocking it like a champ, my friend.
All right, yeah, and don't forget about the Best in Faction, the Next Generation. Always check out This Week in 40K. Follow us on all the stuff. And if you ever, want to have any questions or anything, we're in a bunch of different Discords. If you're in the Best in Tabletop Network Discord, go, or if you're not, go hit up the Patreon, jump in the Discord. We have an amazing group in there. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Hopefully this helped you out and enriched your future hobby experiences. Thanks, everybody. Say goodbye, Joe.
Bye, Joe.
Thanks, everyone.
He did it. He did it.
Yeah. Have a good night,